Welcome to IVF This, episode 82, Anticipatory Stress. Welcome to IVF This. I'm your host, Emily Ginn. After 10 years of primary and secondary infertility due to both male and female factor infertility, I am now the mother to 3 beautiful miracles. I am married to my favorite person in the world. I'm a social worker, a life coach, and an IVF warrior. I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and emotions during your IVF journey, to break free from anxiety and regain control of your life, even in the midst of infertility. I'm going to teach you how to say IVF this to how we think about, talk about, and experience infertility. Let's go. Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope you are all doing so well today. I hope everyone is staying as cool as possible for this ridiculous summer temps. I do not envy our friends in Europe and Canada and the northern part of the US. Here in Texas, we are used to the triple-digit heat. It's not like we like it, but we're used to it. But I know you guys aren't, so I hope you guys are staying cool, that it cools down soon for you, all of those things. I am excited to announce that starting in September, I'm going to start hosting a monthly Ask Emily Anything open coaching call. Completely complimentary. It's going to be an hour long where you can come on and be coached or watch other people being coached. I'll have registration information that's going to be sent out via my email list. So please make sure you get on that list so that you have access to the free call. And the way you get on that list is to go to my website, www.ivfthiscoaching.com. Scroll down to the center of the page on the homepage and click for the free anxiety mini course. If you're on my social media profile, then you can click on my links in my bio and there's a link directly to the mini course. Either way, it's going to get you on my email list and you get to see my 3 simple step solution on managing some of your anxiety. So check that out. Now, today we're going to be talking about anticipatory stress. Anticipatory stress describes stress that you experience concerning the future. Sometimes this stress can be focused on a specific event, such as an upcoming transfer or an upcoming cycle that you're starting or your beta. However, anticipatory stress can also be like this vague and undefined sense of like overall dread about the future or worry that something will go wrong. So I'm going to talk about this with particular reference to things like injections that we do during IVF, procedures that we have. There are many people that fear the injections, sometimes even more than anything else besides the process not working. I really do coach on this a lot of the time. Some people are worried they're going to mess up the medication because for meds like Menopur, you have to mix them. And there's usually pretty specific time windows that we have to follow. And for some people, there is the fear of potential physical pain of the injections. The fear of needles is called trypanophobia, is one of like the top 10 or 15 phobias that most people experience. So it's a very real thing. Now, there are some of you that don't really have a problem with needles, but maybe fear the egg retrieval procedure and recovery. Some of you may fear how the medications are going to make you feel. You may fear public speaking, difficult conversations, or even insomnia, right? The point is that the anticipatory stress exists in many different areas of our lives. So even if you don't specifically fear needles or a procedure, it doesn't mean that there isn't something for you to get out of this episode. Okay, so with any of the examples that I just offered about anticipatory stress, needles, the medication, procedures, public speaking, difficult conversations, insomnia, whatever, the first step is to accept that it will be uncomfortable. Physically, emotionally, both. Sound familiar, guys? Right. We just have to accept reality as what it is before we can ever hope to change it. One of the biggest mistakes we make when we're dealing with something like injections or any situation where we anticipate that we'll be upset or stressed is when we start resisting it. We want to make it go away and avoid it. It's totally normal. It's human condition. So if you struggle with the injections, you will probably be thinking about how much they will hurt or that it might hurt, or what the medication is going to do to you, whether it's the injection itself hurting you, or sometimes the meds can burn when you inject them, and you don't want that. Or let's say if it's sleep, you'll find that you're thinking that you just want to be able to sleep for the night, that you don't want to have to wake up. If you fear or struggle with public speaking, you'll find that you're thinking that you don't want to be nervous, that you just want to be calm. And if I were to ask you, what or how do you want to feel? You'd probably say to not hurt, to sleep through the night, or to feel totally calm. But right now, when you're starting this process, it's not really an option, right? So stop pretending that it is. Stop wanting things to be the opposite of how they really are. And you know that I say this to you as lovingly as possible, but you gotta stop setting yourself up for failure. It's like going to a restaurant that only serves Italian food and spending the whole time wishing the menu would have Japanese hibachi or something on it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be on the menu. It is a waste of energy and resources to wish it were. Because I want you to think about something. We say, I wish or I hope the medication doesn't burn when I inject it, or whoever is doing the injections. So if the doctor or nurse is telling you that it's probably going to burn, if the pharmacist warns you it's probably going to burn, if Facebook groups have post after post about how the medication burns, rest assured that it's really a safe bet that the medication is probably going to burn when you inject it. So first step, we got to accept it. Right now, you are someone who is going to take medication that is probably going to burn. Right now, you are going to have an injection that will likely pinch or be uncomfortable. Right now, you are someone who maybe wakes up in the middle of the night. Right now, you are someone who gets nervous before they have to give a speech or whatever it is. First up is always acceptance. There is no net benefit to fighting it. Acceptance doesn't mean that we'll always be this way. That's a lie that our brain wants to offer us. Acceptance only means that when you accept what is right now and therefore aren't, then you aren't going to be surprised when that thing happens. Then we look at what we're making that anticipation mean. Because the whole reason we're so upset that that thing is happening is the meaning that we make it. Just like with everything else. So with injections, there's a lot of mental drama, not just about the potential pain and discomfort of the injections, but again, how the medication is going to make us feel. Like we worried we're going to be grumpy or that we're going to be really tired, we're not going to be able to function. We're just going to be even more stressed out or feel terrible, et cetera, et cetera. And what does that do? It makes us feel all of those things right now. It makes you feel stressed about how terrible it is right now. With something like public speaking or a difficult conversation, it may be thoughts more like, I'm going to feel nervous. I'm going to do a bad job. The audience is going to hate me, or my boss or my partner. Whoever it is that I'm talking to isn't going to like what I'm going to say. You're not going to be effective in preparing when you're thinking that way. And that's what you're going to be spending your time doing, staying in that place that you're already afraid of. So once we accept that it's going to happen, we're not going to have to change it yet. We're just going to accept that it's going to happen. Then we can start working on the story that we're telling ourselves when that actually happens, right? Because remember, whatever we believe is true, we will create. If you tell yourself that when you feel physical symptoms of fatigue, that is stressful and awful and you'll be bad at your job, you'll be a terrible partner, whatever you think will happen when you start feeling those sensations, which again, you've accepted for now that that's what's going to happen. It's an expected side effect of the types of medications that we are typically taking during an IVF cycle. Your brain will literally create what you have told it will happen. Many of us have heard the placebo effect, right? That's when someone gives a non-active medication, but then they get better or receive relief because they believed that they were getting an actual medication with active ingredients, that their body actually responds to this medication. There's actually something called the nocebo effect, which is that you will be given an active medication, but if you believe that you didn't get one, that it wouldn't work as well or wouldn't work at all. So if you tell yourself that you're going to be exhausted and stressed and unhappy, that's what you're going to be. And it's going to be amplified by your thinking. So first we have to accept that we're going to have the emotion or not get the sleep, or it's going to be uncomfortable when you inject the medication, whatever it is. And then you have to decide ahead of time what you're going to think about it when it happens. Decide ahead of time what story you're going to tell yourself. So let's take the injections. Instead of thinking about how painful the injection will be. You might practice something like, the injection will almost certainly be uncomfortable or painful, but that's okay. Even if it takes a few minutes for the discomfort to stop, I will be fine. I will be safe. I have been uncomfortable before. It's not a problem. Let's take insomnia. You're having trouble sleeping and you wake up. Instead of launching into a litany of all of the problems that this is and how you're going to be so exhausted tomorrow, you might practice something like, I'm awake right now and that's okay. Even if I don't fall back asleep, I'll be okay. I've gotten by on this much sleep before. It's not a crisis, or whatever you want to practice, right? It's totally individual to you. One of my coaches uses the example of when you fall in love and you're up all night. When you first fall in love and you just stay up all night talking, having sex, whatever you're doing, you're not skulking around feeling sorry for yourself and exhausted the next day. You feel like rejuvenated and amazing, and you can't wait to do it again. You're like, sleep? No, I don't need sleep. I could do this all night. Because your thoughts are about how amazing and fun and wonderful it is. You may not even feel the symptoms of fatigue, but they don't stress you out or bother you when you're in that stage because of how you're thinking about them, what you're making that experience mean. Regardless of what the example is, I guarantee you that your thought is going to make things easier, tolerable, or make them worse. And our thoughts are the only thing that we can control anyway. We can't control if the injection hurts or if the medication burns or if it makes us feel terrible or anything like that. But our thoughts about those things can absolutely exacerbate what is already happening. So when you allow it and you accept it and you're willing to experience it, you also see a change in the behavior or the thoughts that exacerbate it. Even if you can't believe that you're going to be totally fine, you can still work on believing it's not as dire or as horrible as you've been believing it would be. Okay, so the steps so far. Number 1, accept it. It's going to happen. And not being in this uncertainty of what might happen. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, and stressing out about it. It's going to happen. We just assume it's going to happen. Then number 2, coming up with a thought to practice when it happens. Deciding on purpose what to make it mean. Step 3 is we start to do prep work. When you are doing that first injection, walking into the clinic for your retrieval or transfer, waking up at 3 a.m. or stepping on a stage, whatever it is, that's not the ideal time to practice the thought for the first time. You can, worth a try, but obviously if you have practiced it ahead of time, your brain will have learned the thought better. It's like practicing a musical instrument or sports. You want to practice so your brain becomes used to making that motion, so to speak. So whatever you decide to think in that moment, you need to start thinking it on purpose ahead of time. If it's for the injection or medication, you might spend the day practicing the thought. Even if it's painful or uncomfortable, I'm not in danger. I won't die from this. I can tolerate a few minutes of discomfort. If it's insomnia, you may want to spend the day practicing the thought, even if I don't get a ton of sleep tonight, I will be fine tomorrow. Public speaking, even though I get nervous on stage, I can still effectively connect with my audience. You want to practice ahead of time so that the thoughts become unconscious. When we practice a thought a lot, it's just like when we learn a new skill. It eventually will move into the unconscious portion of our brain, which then carries it out automatically. And that's the goal. Like when you're driving somewhere that you know really well and you're having a conversation or maybe daydreaming or whatever, but you're not consciously making turns on how to get there. You still get there safely. It's because your unconscious mind has taken over the operation. And that's what happens when you're thinking. That's when a thought becomes a default thought. And that is what in coaching, we refer to as intentional thought creation. Finally, step 4, as you get experience with how this reduces the intensity of the problem, you can then start working your way up the thought ladder and practicing believing things like, this injection will be over so quickly and I've learned how to limit or minimize the discomfort. Or, I know I'm going to sleep really well tonight, even if I wake up. I'm going to fall back asleep really quickly, right? Or if I have a side effect on the medication, I know how to take care of myself And I know that I can reach out to my medical team with any questions or concerns. That is how we deal with anticipatory stress. That's how we deal with it about anything in the world. Step 1, accept the emotion that you fear is going to happen. Stop resisting it. That will already feel better because you've removed all the uncertainty about what it is, what it does, if it doesn't. I have to worry about that. No, we just assume that it's going to happen. Step 2, look at what you're making it mean when you feel or experience this thing and decide on purpose what you want to believe that is less dramatic, less catastrophizing, less scary. Step 3, practice the thought. That means you've decided to make on purpose what it means, right? Practice not just when it happens, but ahead of time. Step 4, move your way up the thought ladder, believing less negative and more positive thoughts about what it means if this thing happens, or that it may or may not happen at all. Listen to me, this is important. Please do not skip these steps. Do not get off the podcast and, as someone who has a lifelong fear of needles, trying to practice this thought, I know I can handle any discomfort I might feel and expect that to stick. It's not likely to stick or work right off the bat, and that's okay. You can try it, but I really want you to follow the steps that I laid out. With anticipatory stress, like anything else, your drama and resistance to it are what make it so terrible. 80% of our suffering in any situation is our resistance to the situation. So follow the steps. Don't try and skip over the first one. Acceptance is what unlocks the rest of it. All right, my beautiful friends, that is what I have for you today. I hope you apply this to something in your life that you have some anticipatory stress about and find that it really can change your whole experience of it. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of IVF This. If you like what you've heard, click subscribe and follow to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you want to learn more, head over to www.ivfthiscoaching.com to learn how to work together.